was backed, but not really backed by the UST token. And if I'm losing anybody right now, raise your hand. I'll take questions because we're doing the show a little bit differently because T Wells is not available today. But to continue on, the way I'm incentivized to arbitrage this opportunity because one UST is always one Luna, no matter what that is. It's always that's built into the contract. It's one for one, right? So now there's more UST in circulation. It brings the price back down because now I've been minting my Luna to UST. So now the price is going to regulate back to $1. So I got to speak right. Algorithmically, the dollar will always balance out because someone will arbitrage it to make it so, in a sense. So now what makes the price of Luna go up is because now that I've minted it, now Luna is more scarce and now in sense more valuable. Oh, and I see T Wells here. Let me bring him back up here right now. 1 second. Oops. Let me go ahead and get that. Oh, and I have another speaker here, George, as well. Let me go ahead and approve him as well. But that's the general idea of how the ecosystem was going to work. So, you increase the supply, you bring down the price, you lower the supply, you bring back up the price. It's an algorithmic system. There's no dollar backing it, but basically the system itself and people believing in the system of how Luna would work. So the question was what went wrong in this perfect scenario, right? So, um, the off-chain markets. Okay, under the $1 off-chain markets, you buy UST, you burn it to mint Luna, you sell Luna for profit exchanges, and therefore you put like massive sell pressure, right? So nobody would do that because you're making money, making 20% return in Anchorage, right? So Anchorage as a platform was giving you 20% of your UST stablecoin back, 20% a year. Right. So this is perfect. Like that's one of the highest rating yields, dollar pegged. It's a very low risk in theory type of system where, you put in $100 and at the end of the year you come back with 120, no risks, no worry about fluctuation in the markets. You would come back. The biggest problem was the Anchorage was paying themselves with their own token in a sense. So kind of like Ponzi schemes. They're using that very token that they're getting to pay it back. So they weren't creating a revenue. So what happens is when the yields go lower, then where do people go? Like I'm sorry, Anchor declared that they were going to lower the yield to I think 16% or 12% or anything like that. So, what happens? People are going to start moving their money, right? And so when you do that, you lower the circulating supply of Luna because everybody's selling UST for Luna. So what happened is, and I believe this is a coordinated attack personally, because when you move that much money around in a single point, we're talking in the billions of dollars, you create a crazy death spiral of sell pressure for Luna. So Luna itself would have been fine if it were done in small amounts like it has been doing. But because we're talking like about $10 billion being removed from the Anchor protocol all at once, it created a whole kind of spiral system right here. So they had sold UST in large amounts, creating a large amount of sell pressure, therefore kind of pushing the peg down a bit, right? So now here's the arbitrage opportunity, right? UST is down. I can buy UST for less than $1, and then I can go ahead and burn it for Luna. And then Luna's up in price, so then therefore I can go ahead and sell Luna at a profit because I'm buying UST at 80 cents and I'm selling it at $1 worth of Luna. I'm making 20% return. What happens is when the inflation comes up in there, you get more Luna tokens per dollar. So if I had one, let's say it was equal, one Luna was $1, I had one UST, I'd get one for one, right? And then if I had if UST went up in value, then it would be more like 2 lunas, just to keep it simple. I would get 2 lunas for 1 UST. So when you have creating these crazy pressures where you're getting like crazy flippage with 20%, 80% dip, I'm sorry, 80% price range, then I'm getting way more Luna. Then I have way more sell pressure on Luna itself because I'm getting more Luna tokens. So therefore, I'm getting twice as many Luna tokens. And then when there's more pressure, I'm getting 4 times as many Luna tokens for that same UST. And then I'm getting 8 times more, 16 times more. And it just keeps going up and up and up. That Luna inflation becomes unstable. And then basically the whole thing crashes. And that's pretty much what happened to Luna in itself. So, what happened to the Bitcoin? What happened to the CVX? What happened to all those other things? The Luna Foundation actually spent like $8 billion in Bitcoin trying to repeg the UST peg, but the pressure of Luna kind of death spiraling could not keep up with that pressure because one, that first profit maker made that move. And then once people start losing the DPEG and then people started getting worried on Twitter and Discord and everything, it then caused a bank run in a sense. So everybody and their mama was cashing out on UST because one, there was an opportunity to make money. I could buy UST at a discount, sell it back to Luna for $1, and then sell that Luna and make an instant 20% profit. When it went to 75 cents, that's a 25% profit. When it went to 60 cents, it went to, you're getting lower. The lower it is, the more you can cash out, the more Luna tokens you're getting, the more profit. So when people are asking, like, why are people buying Luna or why are people buying UST when this thing is crashing? It's because there's an arbitrage opportunity to make money because it's always a one-to-one peg. So, you got to count on the greed of people to make a quick buck. So then it comes back to a coordinated attack. Like who kind of did this? And it's like back to the original problem. It's like, well, put on your tinfoil hat, and it's like, well, who benefits from us being dependent on the US dollar? you know? So whether it's institutional money, whether it's governments, or maybe it's like a large coordinated attack, algorithmic stable coins are very, very sensitive in order to go, to be able to stabilize itself. It kind of blew up too fast in a sense for it. It was a semi-decent system, but because Anchor was, paying 20% of its own tokens, how can something survive when it's producing that many tokens on that much yield? We're talking like, gosh, it was like in the top 10 for a while. We're talking billions of dollars that it was producing on 20%. And then all those tokens getting dumped at the same time. There was just no way for it to go up. It was kind of in a sense doomed at failure when it got too big in a sense. And they try to back it up with Bitcoin. They try to back it up with with other assets, but it wasn't enough to keep that death spiral working because the way the algorithm pretty much worked itself out. So again, who benefits from that? And like, what is the point of even having a stable coin? Is the biggest question. I'm going to go ahead and approve. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Definitely, we'll be happy to answer that. Oh, there we go, Ozzy. Go for it. Go for it. Before I go even further.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around all this. One question is, could there be a rule in the algorithm to avoid this? To say if exponentially this starts selling, like it did, like put a stop to it or something like that. Um, and two, can it be traced to who started this?
Well, again, that's the power of anonymity. You don't really know who it is because the way you can fund wallets anonymously is difficult to follow. But following $1 billion back, left and right is taking some sleuth work because it did actually go to exchanges. There's quite a few shady things that happened that I'm going to get into in just a little bit, but the coin itself is run in the contract, and you can't run fail safes because it's backed by nothing. So the mechanism has to work on its own, and that was kind of the problem in a sense because in order for it to, it was too early for it to be able to like blow up this big. I think it got too big too fast, and therefore it became a failure because somebody or some coordinated attack, pulled the leg from underneath it before it could get a stable ground. There wasn't enough UST spread out in the ecosystem to do so. So when the whole reason, like, well, the whole reason that it collapsed was the very system itself that kept it up. Unfortunately, it's just another stable system that failed. And there's been quite a few stable tokens, and we learned from every one of them. There was empty set, was this algorithmic coin, Ampleforth, Basis Cash, and probably the biggest one was Iron Finance and the Titan one. I actually was a victim of that too, and I think Mark Cuban too, where that was systematically backed by USDC, and only 25% was, and then there was a big bank run. Go ahead, Ozzy. Go ahead.
I have a question. Is it one is let's say this system is still working per se, right? And two,
Yeah.
was the $10 billion that they injected into it, was that a complete loss?
No, it's a loss in the ecosystem, but I can guarantee you somebody profited off of that. And I'll explain why I think so. But yes, the system is technically still working. The problem is because it lost peg and they couldn't repeg it, now they're printing out more Luna tokens than UST's worth. So that's why we have like, I think 1 trillion Luna tokens now. And that's why it's worth on like a millionth of a penny, because it kept printing out Luna tokens because you can keep cashing it in. So the arbitrage bots were just, working. It's working as intended, but now that it's no longer keeping peg, it will keep printing out more Luna tokens, and that's how they actually had to stop the whole chain, and that gave them a chance to kind of recover. And they're actually talking about forking. But going back to like where that money goes, when you do a coordinated attack, right? The first thing I do, like if I was going to do this attack on here, right, I would short the system. What does it mean by shorting, right? So let's say I have $1 million, right? I'm gonna put that in collateral somewhere. I have $1 million. I want to borrow 80% of Bitcoin. Let's say what Bitcoin was 40K before this all started, right? So now I have 40, about 80% of a million, so $800,000 worth of Bitcoin in my possession. The next thing I do, because I want to short it, because I believe Bitcoin is going to go down, is I'm going to sell that Bitcoin for dollars. So now that I have now sold $800,000 of Bitcoin for USDC, let's say. So now I create this whole Terra Luna disaster, right? I still owe $800,000 in Bitcoin, but now I force the price of Bitcoin to go down to $30,000. So now, in order for me to pay it back, now with that $800,000 of cash that I bought, I'm going to go ahead and buy back that Bitcoin at discount and pay back my loan, and I keep the difference. So those billions. So think of that like that's only $1 million. Think of this in the billions. So this is a coordinated attack to short the entire market, sell the assets, buy it back for cheap, and then keep the profit. So basically, I think it was a robbery on retail and a big institutional money front. I think personally. I mean, don't quote me on it. CIA, don't whatever. But I think that's a strategy that anybody would use to, if you have the power to do so. If I had the power to short something and create a fear and have people sell, then that would be the exact strategy that I would use. Go ahead, Ozzy. Go for it.
Um, so that's just let's just say that's just one coordinated attack. Do you think that that was one of multiple attempts to disrupt what's going on now?
Yes, exactly. Actually, after the UST, the next day later, there was an attack on USDT, and that was dropping. I think it dropped down to like I think 95 cents. But the difference is on USDT, people in the know weren't that scared because USDT, even though it's had its issues, and in the past it did depeg. Um, I'm thinking 2016, 2017, it actually depegged down to 75 cents. And there's always been like issues for, is it really backed by commercial paper or anything? But Bitfinex, the exchange that runs USTD, is they will always claim $1 for every USDT. So when it was on sale at 95 cents or 94 cents, people were buying it and then going to Bitfinex and making a quick 5%, 6% profit instantly. Like I could literally buy it right now and then sell it on Bitfinex and have $1. So I think of it in the millions, $1 million, and then you buy it and then you make 5% on $1 million every time people are selling. So it's a technique to scare people into moving their assets, selling at a loss. When you're selling at a loss, somebody's winning, right? Because somebody's buying it from you. And so I played that part too, where people were selling at UST. I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna buy some at UST and then sell it right here for $1. So I mean, I played that part too because people were getting nervous. They were selling their bags at a loss, and so the people that weren't nervous or a little bit more riskier were making a profit. Deuce Finance had another attack too. Die like Luna, it's tied to the Deuce token. They just depegged greatly too. So it's just a constant attack of fear of like who can you scare to sell your bags at a loss? Go for it, Isaac. Go for it.
So I mean, if I understand this correctly, there was multiple attempts to multiple stable coins, um, and it was in the billions of dollars. So if you're talking about, 10, 20, 30 billion, 40 billion dollars, then this is obviously some form of like large institution, large state attack.
Yes, I believe so. I mean, everybody wanted institutions to come. I was like, I don't think they play fair. I think I have no exact proof of it, but I mean, with that kind of money, who else has that kind of money other than maybe large whales or things? But like
Well,
when
enough.
there's a lot to get, go ahead, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say enough money to play with, right? This isn't like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
still it's crazy. So it'll be interesting to, if we ever find out,
yeah.
who these entities are.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. Like you'll probably never know, unfortunately. And that's kind of my joke when all this was happening is like, you guys wanted institutions to come. Well, here they are. Because when you think of people with a lot of money, when you think of rich people, when you think of like large corporations, everybody's like, okay, the institutions are going to come in and they're going to come and then our bags are going to go up. That's everybody's thinking. That's wishful thinking in my part. Institutions never buy at the top. I'll tell you that. Ethereum was $4,000. They don't say, hey, congratulations for being early. We're going to buy in too, and then we're going to make it go up. They never buy and hope that it goes higher. They create situations, they create laws, they create rules that take the money from you. You sell them your bags at a loss, and then once they start getting their positions correct, once they have the talent to make everything they need to have, then the door's open for retail to come back in and they have the position. And then you guys are putting your bags with them. That's my theory. That's how I see in business. That's how I see all corporate business. They never buy at the top, they buy it from you at the bottom.
So they just push and pull these markets, right? I mean, that's what it.
Exactly. Yeah, especially because it's unregulated markets. So I mean, I'm not saying that the CEO of Visa is doing it, but I'm pretty sure there's a dedicated team that is off the books that can really mess with the markets. There's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, if a guy like me can make a small arbitrage opportunity with a small DPEG, you're talking 5% in a day, not 5% in a year, 5% in a single swap. Imagine that in the billions, in the millions of how much money is actually being robbed from people because they sold those. They got nervous. They sold it. So there's 5% in a minute. It's crazy amount of money that's going back and forth. So when we're talking transfer wealth and people are like, oh, we're early. I mean, people just got robbed. They scared them enough and they made them fear because this is a scary space for a lot of people that are new to this space that have gotten here in the last year or two. This is the first time I've ever seen like a crazy crash, which I still think we can go way lower. But now they're getting nervous and like, oh, they're selling their positions, and the guys that have been in the game, the guys that have the money, are doing the quick flip and cashing out.
It's the same similar situation in real estate, man.
Exactly. It's
It's
not
a
like it's a new game. It's not a new game. It's just a new platform. That's all it is.
Yeah,
It's not like, yeah. Go ahead, go for it.
I remember when the real estate market went down in 2008. The banks, like I forgot which banks, but the
Yeah.
usual large banks, they were buying like entire neighborhoods, right? They were buying like almost entire cities when the
Right.
prices were at their lowest, And then, of
Right.
course, 5 years later, they flip those and prices are sky high.
Right. For those that had the liquidity, they had the opportunity. I mean, that's the lesson that I learned in 2017 and 2018 in the crash. Like everybody's saying, again, not financial advice, my lawyer ain't here, but whatever. Every time there was a dip, you see all these people buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. So I bought it. I went all in, boom, and then it dipped lower and went another lower 20%. I was like, oh shit, let me get some more money. Let me buy this dip. And it just kept getting lower and lower and lower. I was like, shit, I'm losing. And it went down 90% over 2018 over the course of the year. So every time I was buying, I was losing. And I was like, shit. Well, I mean, ultimately it worked out, but then I learned my lesson. Always have liquidity for the real opportunities, and that's something that I've learned now as I want to say I'm an experienced trader, but someone that's been in the game a little bit longer. I would say, all right, I'm always going to have some liquidity. I'm not going to go all into DeFi. I'm not going to go all into anything. I'm always going to have something. Because let's say I put something on a DeFi and this, 10% in a year, and all of a sudden something like this happens out of the blue. No one expects it. I can make 10% in a day with, less the money. So it's always a strategy that I use over time. But to get into the drama of like what happened, so this is just the crash. We're not even looking at the aftermath. We're not looking at anything. This is just what happened with the stablecoin. All right. I still root for algorithmic stablecoins. I hope that UST can come back or somebody else can create a new one that works that takes a little bit slower Frax is one that is still in the air, that they're half collateralized, half stable. I mean, sorry, algorithmic stablecoin. So, I'm watching them to see what they do. But in order to really remove ourselves from dependence on the nation state, we need something like this. So it's not like stay away from algorithmic stablecoins. I got to be able to say this right one day, but it's something that we definitely need. Other nations have done it. There's every no, I mean, like, everybody can argue what's the dollar backed by. It's backed by tanks and guns and people saying you better use our dollar or not, or else. You know, so what happened with Luna after the fact, right? They try to depeg. What happened to all that Bitcoin? What happened to all that Luna? What happened to all these other assets that they have, right? So Luna was actually doing over the counter sales, and this is kind of the shitty part that kind of upset me, because I was rooting for Luna, and they were actually letting big whales cash out for the dollar. So with the Bitcoin they have and the assets they have, they were actually selling their Bitcoin on exchanges with Gemini and Binance, which are now being investigated because they want to know who was buying now. So they're going to be under a lot of pressure to see who was the one on there. But they were letting people, large players in the millions and billions, cash out their shitty ass UST that's worth, zero for the dollar. So, I'm all for getting a good deal or anything on the space, but I'm in the space here because it gives everybody a fair play chance. I personally, I'm tired of seeing politicians take advantage. Just today, the wife of a politician, bought $300 million of a stock right before they announced something that was going to affect the stock. Technically, it's not insider trading, or not, because they didn't buy it and they have separate entities. But that stuff that's kind of shady for me. It's not fair for the rest of the world. And the part that gets me is there's no punishment for it. Everybody can be mad about it, but nothing happens. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen in the space, but there it is happening with it. Luna is doing it over the counter and letting big whales, people with big money, cash out, and they're fucking the rest of the retail. Everybody that had UST, I can't get that same thing. I have to wait to see what happens, which they're actually going to do a fork, which, as crazy as it sounds, they're going to make the original Luna Classic, and they're going to airdrop people the new Luna token, and they're not going to have UST on the network. Um, the biggest issue is, where does the talent go, right? Because Terra wasn't just UST; it's a whole chain, just like Ethereum was, Avalanche, Solana. It had its own ecosystem, right? And so, let's just, like, for video games as an example, Nintendo, Sega. If anybody was old enough to remember those wars, Nintendo won the game, right? Like, the Sega no longer exists as a hardware game. So what happened to all the developers and designers for that? Now all these other platforms are picking up their talent. So now that Luna is forking, uh, what's going to happen to the talent? They've already gone. Polygon's already picked up with big incentives. Avalanche has been picking up with big incentives. Ethereum is cheap, so it's cheaper to deploy and create activities. So it's any man's world. And with this market crash, a lot of people are getting fired. It was a euphoria. It's kind of like the 2017.com era, where engineers were getting hired left and right, and they were hiring for anything because they needed the talent. And now that prices have crashed and things have gone down almost 90%, there's a lot of guys that are not working. I see it on my timeline. A bunch of devs that I know say, just got fired, looking for work. So it's going to be like, what's going to happen? I mean, would you personally go back into the Terra system, knowing what happened and knowing what it is? Like, do you have faith in that whole chain anymore? Do you have faith in Solana, even though it's shut down 3 times and now they're doing blacklists on certain contracts to keep the network alive? There's it goes back to decentralization and what you believe in or what you feel safe in. When things got a little sticky and the UST crash and the USDT peg crash, I moved to die. Honestly, I moved some assets to die, and I held out for a day or two just to make sure, because I was like, well, I can hold out and do this arbitrage, or I can wait a day and feel safe and go to sleep. And then it comes down to what you feel safe with, what your risk parameter is, and what's going to happen next. Because in this space, things happen super super quick, right? So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Terra. There's going to whole legal the whole legal thing is going to be insane. Their whole legal system just quit. They resigned. So, like, all the lawyers that were defending the Luna Foundation are gone. So I don't know if that's something shady and they want to remove themselves from it, or they're just like, they can't pay us. I'm not quite sure. But they are sitting on a decent treasure chest of a lot of assets. They still have Bitcoin. They still have convex finance because they were doing bribes to create that original four pool that they were going to do to try to remove DAI from the network. or at least from the liquidity incentives. So they're still sitting on a lot of money. Um, so I was dying to see what they were going to do when they announced the fork today. So some people are going to get some money back. I don't know how much. I don't know how much retail is going to get. I just know that the big players are being taken care of and doing one for one. Go for it, Ozzy.
You mentioned the fork, and I just wanted to ask about that. So, when a fork in software development, you pretty much, and again, it's more of a question. You kind of go off into another segment, right, of code. You kind of leave the legacy, whatever that was, right, and you kind of deploy a new system, a new set of code, right, kind of a fresh start. Is that right?
Well, sort of. It literally is a fork. So the original Luna network will live on forever. It will
Right.
still exist and still go. But now with the validators, the network of computers that make everything true will now focus all their work towards the new fork. And so there'll be a new path of where the network will go, and that's where they're going to basically reverse all the transactions before the crash and try to reimburse everybody to where it was before the beginning of the last week.
How does that
um
how does that
Go ahead.
help? How does that help, man? I mean, other than reimbursing people, how does that help the system? How does that give them more, credibility, or how does that help them?
Well, it really, well, again, it's literally incentives at this point. If you are a gambler, you want the biggest risk for the biggest reward, right? In a sense, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made on Luna because you still have that dollar peg that you can play with, and you have those arbitrage opportunities. And you're talking, sometimes 5, 10% in a day. If you have enough money, I mean, if you have $100, you make $10, big deal. If you have $100 million, now you're talking some big money that can be made literally in minutes. So
Would
there's
you pay taxes on that?
Oh yeah, depending where you live. In the U.S., yes, definitely. So when I did my arbitrage, me and the IRS were celebrating. Okay, so every time I do a loss, they say, "Oh, that's too bad, fam." But when we win together. So IRS is always happy when I'm winning. But yeah, so depending on where you live, there's different ways to do it. Like in Germany, they announced that if you hold your crypto and you don't pull it out for a year, you don't have to pay taxes in it. Before in Portugal, there was no taxes on crypto, and they just announced that they are planning to tax crypto. So it really depends where you live, on where your strategies are, and that's why a lot of these organizations are not in the United States, because the U.S. is probably the worst for this kind of information. There's no clear guidelines, and the SEC keeps playing games of what they want and what they don't want. Go for it, Ozzy.
So I'm trying to understand this. So if I have $1,000, right, and I'm
Yeah,
making 5% each time I do this arbitrage, is that correct?
yeah,
So
yes,
that's $50 every time I do this arbitrage. I
right,
can do this arbitrage all day.
yes,
So I
yeah.
can
As
I
long
can
as
make for with $1,000 a day, I make 20 transactions, and that'll be around $1,000.
Yes. So check it out. This is the strategy that I did on Curve Finance. So just the way Curve works is, think of it like, so I can keep swapping back and forth on there. So what happened is when everybody was getting scared, like with USDT, everybody was pulling out their USDC and their DAI tokens, those two stable tokens that are backed one for one. They were pulling it off because they didn't want to be exposed to USDT because there was a lot of sell pressure on there. So therefore, if I had swapped DAI token, $1 DAI token for USDT, it was up to like $1.50. So if I swapped one DAI for one USDT, I made a 50% profit, because then I can go and sell this 1.5 USDT at Bitfinex for $1.50. So for every $1 I had, I was making quick swaps, and I can go back, or I can go to another exchange a dollar, and then go back and then exchange it again until it balances out. Because every time I swap, I'm depositing the limited asset and I'm getting the surplus asset. So if I just keep doing that, eventually it's going to balance out because I keep depositing the asset, and eventually it'll balance out because that's the way the system works. That's the way automatic market makers work, in a sense. But I was balancing the pool because we were doing arbitrage. So, but for every swap that I came out profitable, that is definitely taxable in the States, and that's at 35% because it's an instant gain. So it wasn't like a long-term hold that I know I bought Ethereum at on Coinbase and I just let it sit there for a year and I didn't touch it. This is an instant swap, so that's something that I have to be there with my Excel sheet. Stable coins are a lot easier because the dollar is a dollar; it doesn't change. But that's something I have to take into consideration for every swap that I do. So that's kind of like how everything stays in balance, because if there's an opportunity for someone to make money, they're going to take it. If something's 99 cents that you know you can get a dollar somewhere else, why wouldn't I buy it? Yeah, go for it, Ozzy.
So Terra, Luna now, their attorneys are gone, you mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
I don't know if they have any other form of structure as far as corporate, not corporate, well, structural kind of structure for their like, is there a CEO, a finance guy? Who is left organization wise?
Well, that's a curious answer. I don't know the exact details because Do Kwon is pretty much the face of the Terra network. He's pretty much the mastermind behind the entire system. He's the face. He's the one on Twitter. He's the one on on the website. And then you have the Luna Foundation, and they're the ones that do all the money management, and they're the ones that did the over-the-counter sales. They're the ones that did all the Bitcoin buying and the asset backing and the well swapping. So whatever that entity is, or whoever that entity covers, doesn't really have to do with Do Kwon. Even though everybody's attacking Do Kwon, I don't know what stake he has in that company, or back and forth. But my point of the legal system is like either they have a really big problem that they saw they could not solve, or they're just worried that they won't get paid for all their work because now they've lost all their assets and they're probably going to get liquidated for the rest of their assets. And so how are they going to get paid? So that's, I don't know until the story goes a little bit further in detail of what happens, but I know Do Kwon has been called into the courts in Korea, but I don't know how far you can go, because if he's absolved himself from the foundation and he's just the face of a company, I don't know where how deep his hands are into the actual foundation or not. But we'll find out pretty sure during the week to see what's going on.
So he would face Korean law
Yeah, he's in South Korea. So Do Kwon is
in
in
South
South
Korea.
Korea.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean that Singapore did like a class action lawsuit for the losses on there. I mean, again, if this gets into like world law, like if Kim Jong Il stole money from me, like I can call my lawyer in the U.S. and he's going to send a letter to Korea, like North Korea. He's just going to tear up the paper and laugh. Like how far does a government reach have? U.S. seems to have a lot of reach for some reason, but it's we're now dealing with a new playground where the world, there's no borders, right? Like if there's a website, I can access it, I can trade on it, I can take my risk on it. So he's facing the heat in Korea, but I don't know if anybody else is going to try to. I don't know if the US is going to try to sue him. I know SEC has served him, but he countersued them. So it's such a world that we don't know what's going on or what will happen, because this is all brand new. I mean, think of it like the cowboy days and people were in the stagecoach, right? They had laws for horses, they had laws for your stagecoach, and then the steam engine came around. Like it has nothing to do with horses. So like, how do you create laws for the steam engine? Like it's all brand new. So the new laws have to be made for that. Go for it, Ozzy.
But from this conversation, it doesn't seem like there was, at least again from just
Yeah.
from this conversation, it doesn't seem like it seems like it was a coordinated form of attack, right? It doesn't seem like it was a like um, a criminal activity from anyone in particular,
Right.
or
Uh,
why would he face courts? I guess.
I mean, someone wants a finger to point at, like when someone's angry, like when you lost 90% of your value, you want to blame somebody, right? And Doug Kwan is the face of UST, so that's who you're gonna attack, because nobody, like when I want to get like the CEO of Luna Foundation, I have no idea who that is, and that's the value of privacy. I have no idea who it is. I just know it's the Luna Foundation. Now I can sue the Luna Foundation, but everybody knows Doug Kwan. He's on the internet. He's a character. Like he says what he says, and he you know I like him. So it's just one of those things that people just want someone to blame, and people are going to his house. There's some bankers that literally showing up at his house, and this is the dangers of doxing yourself. That's why I respect the people that don't dox themselves, because you're messing with people's money. Like it's not like $20, $100. Like sometimes people put their life savings into this thing, and then when things go bad and their life is in shambles, they want someone to blame, and then if you're the face of the thing they blame, they're going to go ahead and attack you. So I'm a 50-50 of docs undoxed here. I believe you have the right to privacy, but some people feel better that you are doxed and that you are the face of the company. It's totally up to your perception of what it was. And for me, again, everything's kind of new. Like this whole new generation of people that got into the crypto space in 2020 and 2021. It's more of a, with the PFP, of more of a look at me culture in a sense. Before that, everybody was just a Discord name to me. I had no idea who anybody was at any time. Like it was just literally a name. Man, woman, I had no idea who you were. You were just literally a name. So it it's kind of a shock to me that more and more people are kind of showing their face. And now institutions were definitely doing it, and some people have that choice. But it seems to be like the new thing is like dox yourself so it shows that you are a real person and you're not going to steal. But honestly, it makes no difference. Though Quan doxed himself, the contract or the mechanism did what it was intended to do. It just could not survive the attack. It's not like he maliciously did it, but the system itself using Anchor, paying itself with 20% was not sustainable. And with that, with that overinflation in the market, it caused the entire collapse because it got too big and it just got hit way too hard. That's pretty much the unfortunate on there. So now we see the after effects of that, right? So, Ozzy, let's say you didn't even know about UST, right? But then there was this crazy lending company, like Billy Finance, right? And I'm offering you 10% on your stable coins. So you're kind of iffy about UST, right? You're like, I don't want to mess with that. That seems too sketchy for me. Billy Finance sounds pretty legit. They're offering 10% on there. But what you don't know is when you're depositing your money with me, I'm turning it around and depositing it on Terra on Anchor. And I'm getting 20%. And then I'm giving you 10% and I'm keeping 10%. Right. So everything's good and happy while it's working. But now that it's crashed, I still owe you 10%. And now it's worth $0. Right. So now we're going to start seeing the aftermath of all the things happening with UST and like the reimbursements. Like who's coming up short when they're trying to pull out their money, right? And that actually happened on FTM network with Scream.sh. Their FUSD depegged at the dollar. And so it was worth about, I think, 82 cents. So, but they hard coded their contract for it to be $1. So I could deposit 80 cents and I can borrow a full dollar. So people drain the vault. So then people that actually deposited into the account can no longer pull their money out because there's no money to pull out. And this is what you're going to see happening throughout the week because there's going to be a lot of depegs, there's going to be a lot of bad depths, and that's where we're going to see a little bit of shaky market saying, hey, what's going to happen to the space now when all these people that you didn't know what they were doing come back to UST, and then everybody's kind of hoping they get reimbursed. But we still haven't seen anything yet, unfortunately, and that's kind of the scary part in the space, that one token or one man can affect an entire network of different DeFi protocols because they're affected by UST. So I was a little nervous. Like, is any of the ones I'm invested in have any exposure to UST? Because if they do, I just got fucked. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that are happening, and you're going to start seeing in your timeline more and more people saying, "Oh shit, I can't pull this," or "this got hacked." And now that people are getting nervous, you're going to start seeing a lot more rugs because now, as the dollars are going, now's their chance. Oh, NFT projects, we give our project to the community now. Let the community control the NFT project, and so basically they're absolving themselves from any responsibility. And now that project is now a community-driven project, which is I think is absolute bullshit because you paid them all their money, like you bought the NFT, you sent them $100, $200, right? They still get all the royalty fees, but now they don't have to do any work because now it's community driven. So a lot of people, you're going to see a lot of people removing themselves from these positions because where the market is dying, people are getting nervous, and then people start getting angry. I'm already seeing projects, fighting with each other for liquidity. Even today, Solana had like a big run up on NFT markets, and then someone in Ethereum dropped the exact copy of it saying they're not that product, and it blew up higher than the Solana project. It's just a crazy space of people just trying to move money around and be liquid. I mean, it's just the same people moving the same money around back and forth, and eventually that money's going to get dried up, and then that's when I feel like that's when things are going to get kind of risky and kind of scary. Any questions so far?
I have tons, man, but I'm about to start. We're about to start our meeting, so I'll probably
Yeah,
catch you on the next
yeah.
time, man. But it was awesome space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is what we do usually. I mean, just to recap, anybody that has T Wells is down there as a listener. We have a biweekly show that kind of explains a lot of stuff. Like as a developer, all my problems as a player in the space, all the things that I've seen. Like when you're when you've been around an industry or business, right? And I don't want to say I'm an expert because there's way better developers than me. There's way people that are better traders than me. But when you've been around a certain business, you start to see the bullshit when the newcomers come in and they just start saying shit. They're like, all right, I already know you're full of shit. If you're an audio mixer, professional audio mixer, and I come in with some bullshit, you're like, oh no, that's not true. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's what I see a lot in the Twitter spaces is a lot of people saying big fancy words, but know absolutely nothing and no one speaks facts. So me and Two Wells have started a bi-weekly one where I just go off. This is a little bit more censored than usual, but I go off on different topics. And like a lot of people were asking, a lot of people were scared, like what's happening with the stable coins, and they didn't understand stable coins in general. Like what's the difference? What's the point of stable coins? And to really reiterate, stable coins is like printing free money, right? Like think of it like a bank. You give me $1 and I give you one token worth $1, right? Like Chuck E. Cheese. I give you that. So now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have $2 worth of value. One that you gave me and one that I gave you off of $1, right? And you can go spend that and do whatever you want with it. And now I have this $1 to leverage, to do whatever I need, to borrow off these assets, and I can make more money with that money. So that's why we have so many different stable coins. That's why we have so many people trying to go into the stablecoin game, because if they can control the assets and they can control liquidity, then they have a lot of power. They have a lot of leverage power to make more money. And that's what it comes down to in this space for the dollar coins. It's like, why can't we just have $1 coin, dollar, And so it's like a lot of people want that piece of the pie. And that's why we have so many different types of styles. But to read it again, like we need diversity. We need to be able to play. And this is why I want to, you know, keep going with these algorithmic stablecoins. Do I invest in them? No, but I want them to succeed because that's the only way we're going to be able to separate ourselves from any nation state. Right now, we're pegged to the dollar. The dollar's US. So we're always pegged to the US dollar. So, like, if we're always going to be pegged to that dollar and I sell, I'm always going to go against inflation. Right. And again, just to reiterate for people that missed it, the dollar used to be pegged to gold for a long time. $1 was like 1 ounce of gold or something like that. And then all of a sudden we couldn't scale enough for that gold. There's not enough gold to go around. So then we started printing more money and we started pegging like what's the dollar back by? So this one is like a special space. Next week will come a little bit more fun. I know people are kind of scared in a sense of like what's happening and where's the market's going to go. Could go up, could go down. But I'm taking questions right now for anybody that was curious about it. And that's almost like at the end of the space, really, unless there's more questions. And I think that's a wrap. Oh wait, hold on 1 second. I got a request. Boom. Go for it. Go for it. The mic is yours.
Yo, what's good, Billy, bro? I know
What's
you say you're
up?
not an expert, bro, but I know for a fact you're a beast of a technical guy, man. So I appreciate you always doing these things. Um,
No
you
doubt.
probably already went over it, bro, but kind of the breakdown. Obviously, what's the difference between the algorithmic stable coin compared to something that's collateralized with actual real assets?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'll do a quick rundown on there. So obviously, let's say DAI token, right? In order for me to make DAI token, I have to send an ETH or USDC or some kind of assets over collateralized. So if I wanted to get $8 worth of DAI, I have to put in $10 worth of ETH. So I have to put in $10 worth of ETH, and I can get $8 worth of DAI, right? So then I have this DAI as pegged as $1. If Ethereum goes down in value, then I'm going to get liquidated because now I'm not at that same level. USDC, BUSD, GUSD are backed dollar for dollar. So like they actually have a treasury full of dollars that, if I come and collect, they just deduct. So it's basically one for one equality. Algorithmic stablecoins are actually not backed by anything. They are incentivized by arbitrage and incentives. So if like for Luna, it's what we call seigniorage type of algorithmic system. It's a two token system where one is a stable coin and then one is like a governance ownership, which would be Luna, right? So the contract would say that 1 UST is equal to 1 Luna at all times. So if I wanted to mint 1 UST, I would have to burn $1 of Luna and vice versa, right? It's always. So if UST is $1.05, right? I can burn my $1 of Luna and get $1.05 of UST, and then I can go out and sell that $1.05 of Luna for a 5% profit on an exchange or something like that, and then I keep it, right? But by doing that, I've added more UST onto the network because I burned the Luna and I made more UST. Now there's more UST available. There's more global supply, right? So then I bring that peg back down, right? And if it goes down, like I say, it's 99 cents. Okay, well, let me buy that UST, right? It's 99 cents. I get it for $1. I go back and I trade my UST for $1 of Luna. And so therefore, I'm taking UST off the market and I'm bringing the price back up, right? So it plays both way. If I kill the supply of Luna and there's lower supply, the value goes up because there's lower supply. And then if UST is going up and down, I buy or sell it back and forth. So it's like a back and forth mechanism that will basically peg based on arbitrage. Somebody has to take that money making opportunity to make it work. The problem was when there was a direct attack and there was that many billions of dollars being attacked, the amount of Luna being printed at that amount, depending on the value of UST and the value of Luna at that time, you get more Luna tokens for every UST. So if Luna goes down in value, I get 2 tokens, and then if it goes down more, I get 3 tokens, and if it goes down even more, I get 4 tokens, and so on and so on and so on. So when you're talking in the billions, I'm getting so many Luna tokens, and what am I going to do with that Luna tokens? I sell it on exchange for a profit. So people were profiting during this entire loss, and it was just driving the price of Luna down. And the people that were holding were the ones that got screwed on the whole situation. But basically, there's no one-for-one trade other than the token itself that's backing it. Think of it like a snake eating itself in a sense. It's just like eating its own tail, right? It only works if the price stays up on both sides and if the arbitrage is good. Hopefully that answered that
Yeah.
question.
No, yeah, man. Because I mean, I like the concept of algorithmic stablecoins. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. If seeing the Tron one too. I know
Yeah.
Justin's son was asked about the whole UST dilemma, and then yeah, man. So it's interesting. Did you look into what was your insight on like Do Kwon? Because I mean I saw some articles that he was part of another kind of failed stablecoin. What was like? Did you look into that by any chance? All right, what's
I
your
think
sentiment towards Do Kwon and like what they're doing, especially like the LFG stuff?
well, for LFG, I mean, for the most part, they tried. I'll give them that. They tried to burn some Bitcoin to make this happen. What I don't like is the over-the-counter sales to whales to let people cash out dollar for dollar for the millions of dollars, and then fuck every retail guy that had faith in them and took a shot. I don't like that. Do Kwon, like I, I think failures are good because we have to learn somewhere. We can't be perfect. I mean, I've deployed shit that I just been fucked to. I'm like, shit, I gotta learn. You gotta learn from your mistakes, right? Stable coins, we're still learning from mistakes, and we're still in this early infancy space of like, you know, we I want this to work because it's our only way out of dependency from the government, right? Algorithmic is the only way. Otherwise, we have to be collateral backed, and we're dependent on something somewhere. And it's just it works, and it works now, and I have faith in it more because if I got scared, I was in die, I was in USDC, no question. But as Do Kwon itself, like if someone came out with 100% record, it's hard for me to have 100% faith in them too, because it's like, well, if you haven't messed up, you don't know what it feels like to feel like shit. Honestly, this is my own personal opinion. If someone just keeps winning and winning, they've never known the feeling of loss, then they never really learned the dangers of losing in a sense. So I don't mind if people lose. I do mind if I lose, if I lose my money. But I've learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson in Iron Finance and the Titan token. Like I got burned on that. It wasn't a lot of money at all. Like it wasn't, but I wanted to see it succeed. Just like I wanted to see UST. Did I have any UST? No, but I wanted to see it succeed and then, test it out later. If you really want to, you can always get insurance on it. But in general, like past failures mean nothing to me. Like if you keep failing back to back to back and back, well then shit, I'm not going to invest in you either. You got to have one win at least. But it's just the process of learning. This space is still so new, and we're still such in an infancy stage. Like I don't want to say we're early because buying Ethereum at $100 is not going to make you a millionaire anymore. But the talent that's here and the ideas that are flowing by, I hope we can continue to just be creative. I think UST is going to be a big example on government saying, "Oh, we got to protect the investor, and regulate dollar coins," and they're already talking about it, and they're going to use this as an example. But it's like it's in their benefit to stop algorithmic stablecoins, because now we become dependent on the government dollar to base all of our assets on. So, it's a double-edged sword for both ways of how we think about stablecoins. Even to like Tron's Tron's crazy. Like I see it's basically, in all honest opinions, I think Justin Sin is the best copy paster in the world, because he's copy pasted Ethereum, he's copy pasted all the DApps. Honestly, I think he was an early player, definitely, but he made most of his billions off Tron, going from 0.003% to 30% because of his pictures with Jack Ma and all the hype of 2017. He sold at the top, and he got called out by the Litecoin guy Charlie Lee, of why he sold at the top at 30 cents. Like, he literally made billions of dollars overnight on just some hype thing, and then from there that price of Tron dropped significantly. So he's been able to have billions of dollars to make sways. Now, I think it's USD and N or something like that is his coin. He's offering 40% interest rate on that to stake on Tron, which kind of like is twice as bad as Terra's 20%. So I really don't know. He has the money to back it, but I mean, what's the difference in that kind of spiral stablecoin? He might be the only one that's doing it himself. I mean, he has the money to create that spiral too. So I don't know. I don't trust it. I'm not on Tron, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure there's a whole Asian market that I don't even know that exists. But it's from Justin's past activities, I have very little trust for him in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. He's always been a very polarizing figure in terms of, like you said,
Yeah,
copy paste. But
yeah.
yeah, man, cool, man. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for all the insight you have, bro. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. And for those that don't know, I mean, just to do reset the room here, me and T Wells, or myself and T Wells, we do this show bi-weekly, usually through YouTube. We're trying Twitter Spaces, we're trying to get it to go, but schedule's messed up. This is not usually in the our usual time. This is just a special one because people were asking about stable coins, and they wanted to hear, my thoughts on it and understand what's the difference between all this nonsense. And then also, for those that are in the know, that I'm actually working with Lewis and the Learn team this Saturday. For those that are new to the space, or want to learn, we're actually working on setting up your wallet. Now, I don't like to do things just basically, because you can literally look up YouTube and how to set up your MetaMask. So depending on the class structure and the class space and how fast we can move, we're going to go ahead and set up a MetaMask. But then we're also going to migrate to another wallet. Then we're going to send some money, and then we're going to learn about cross chains. And if everybody's keeps up, then we might do some token swaps. And then if we're feeling good, then we're gonna delve into Solana. We're gonna delve into Near. It's good to learn about the other chains. It's good to learn about all the ecosystems. It actually incentivizes you to learn. So if you're around and you know somebody that's been trying to get started, or you just want them to get a wallet, or just be comfortable with it, we're doing it this Saturday. Definitely check out the Learn team as well. But I think if there is no more questions or no more comments, I think we might just end the space today. And then we'll be back on normal schedule on next Tuesday for sure. And then, it'll be more of my rant style. It works much better with T Wells, as he deals with my rants as I go off on more foul language. So, if you guys know me, I talk a lot of shit. All right, guys, and I think we're just going to close the room there. If there's any last comments, I'm going to give it like another 10 seconds. If not, thank you guys for learning. Hopefully you guys picked up a gem or two. Um, you know, tr- just go with your gut sometimes. If you're feeling like you're getting wild, just go with it. All right, guys, have a good night. See ya.